Hi, this is X, and welcome to the Candid Frame. Today I want to talk to you about place as character. Now, in a lot of street photography, we're often focusing on people as our primary subject matter. The place, the setting, the background is sort of secondary to what's happening with people. Well, today I want to talk to you about images in which there are no people at all, where basically the setting and the place become the subject or become the character in this place. And I think it's a kind of a challenge for us to create images that are interesting in and of themselves when it's about a place when there are no people. Because the tendency, at least for me sometimes, is I'll make photographs of a wall or a billboard, and it looks like it would be a great setting for a portrait or something else, that it needs the element of a person in order to really complete the shot. I'm talking about something beyond that. I'm talking about a shot that is satisfactory even without the presence of the person, that it doesn't become the missing element in the shot. And I chose several shots here that kind of allow me to touch on the idea of that. So let's take a look at those images. Now the first shot is by Brady Robinson. Shot this with a Nikon D3200 at 1/500th of a second at f11 at ISO 280. And I really like the shot because of the lighting, the presence of shadow is really, really key here. You've got these wonderful patterns of rectangles and lines, both vertical and horizontal, that pervade the entire shot. And it's the kind of shot that I gravitate to a lot, where I just see something and I just break it down into its graphic elements. And I think this is one of the places we can often start at when we're going out and we're photographing and we're trying to find scenes in which we're not including people, but that we want interesting elements. We have sort of a human element by this little piece of graffiti here of this face in the lower right hand corner. But beyond that, we really have no presence of the human face other than that. I think it really works in here that we do have that because it provides that sort of context. But this is what I think is sort of the starting point. I think that this image is really satisfying in and of itself. Even though there isn't someone walking into the frame or anything like that, I think it's very satisfying shot because of the graphic nature of the shot, the pattern, the light, the contrast. It's really, really good. But I'm trying to take my stuff to another level because I think one of the challenges that I face is that I will take pictures of doors, of windows, of facades, and it's really sort of a flat image. It's very two-dimensional. And one of the things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create some depth into my image. I want to feel like I can draw the viewer into the scene. And as good as this image is, I don't feel that in this particular shot. But let me show you one where I do feel that. And this shot is by David Guest. And he shot this with a Noritsuko Koki. So I assume that that's probably a cell phone. So there's no XF data here. And here again, we don't have the presence of people, but we've got this depth. We have this wonderful play of color as he's shooting this either at sunset or in the very early mornings. We have the pattern very similar to the shot previously. We have these very strong vertical, horizontal, diagonal lines happening throughout the frame. But in this shot, we seem to be being drawn in. It's if we're on this platform where these bars lead you into the water, as if we're the person about to take a dip into the water, about to take a dive into this. And that's sort of the thing that I'm talking about in terms of creating a photograph in which the scene itself becomes complex, it becomes interesting, it becomes something that we get drawn into, that we want to linger on. And I think that's what happens. I think it's very easy when you're just doing detail shots. It's really easy to read it really quickly and just move on. And what I'm always trying to do is I'm trying to find compositions that make the viewer want to linger a little bit. I think the complexity of this composition really allows us to do that. And like I've said before, think about what makes this image such a draw. I mean, it has all these wonderful things: great color saturation, sharpness, contrast, pattern, all of that stuff is playing a role in terms of how we experience the photograph. And it's the amalgam of these things, the way that they're coming together, that makes for a really interesting image. Some people would say, well, it would be great if you had a person there at the bar as if they're just about to dive into the water or something, or just coming out of the water. That would be interesting, but that would be a completely different shot. I think that in this case, even without the presence of the person, the shot still works. And I want you to take a look at this image and some of the other ones that I'm going to be talking about here and try to understand what it is about them that make them work, even though there aren't any people within the frame. Here's a shot by Bob McClure. There's no XF information on this image. And here again, we have the presence of a person in the form of this painting or this mural on the Benson Hotel. But otherwise, we don't get to see anyone. But this image has that depth that I'm talking about. There's a layered quality to the composition. The first layer is, of course, this wall with the Benson Hotel. Then we have the second layer here with this sign with this old vintage car, and then we have this third layer in the distance of the street in the distance. And again, yes, we have that sort of human context by the illustration on the wall, but beyond that, we're not seeing people, but we do get a sense of the presence of people, just by the nature of the scene, the cars, but a lot of people would probably initially make this shot and just make it of the sign and the building. And what I'm suggesting is, yeah, you could take that straight shot of just the mural and the wall and the door and the window and all that, but start thinking about taking things at an angle that reveals more of what's behind the main subject and in front of the subject. I think that sometimes we get so sort of myopic in terms of how we shoot something that we forget to think about all the alternatives that are available to us. That's one of the things that I really try to impress on anyone who I'm teaching photography to, is exhaust all the possibilities. Don't just think that the first shot, that the obvious shot, is the only shot that you can make. You really need to move around, change your focal length, get down on ground level, go to a wide angle, go to a telephoto, really, shoot the heck out of a scene before you walk on to find the what you think is going to be the next best thing, because that initial shot is just a way of getting your feet wet. It's likely not going to be the shot that you're going to be the happiest with. And if you're the kind of photographer where you only make a couple of snaps and then you move on to the next one, you're going to have a hard time improving as a photographer, because you're not going to have those images to compare to analyze when your images are working and when they're not working, especially if you're photographing a very similar scene. Now here's this last shot by Kim Ellen. She shot this with a Nikon Coolpix P520. And this shot, I think, has that depth. I mean, the color palette reminds me of the work of William Eggleston, who I'm a really big fan of. And if you're not familiar with Eggleston's work, I think he exemplifies what I'm trying to capture here, in which, he photographs a lot on the streets. I really wouldn't describe him as a street photographer, more as a photographer who photographs in the streets. But most of his images don't include people. So he's exploring space and environment as character, as much as photographers like Joel Meyerowitz are exploring people on the streets. And what I like about Kim's shot here is just that depth. There's this layered quality. We have this big Coca-Cola signer machine right in the middle of the frame. We have this ice machine on the left. Then we have the convenience store as a second level with the Hess sign above it. And then we have this building with this colorful mural off in the distance on the right-hand corner. And again, it's a shot where we're getting some really nice depth to it. It's drawing me in to the scene. I can imagine that I'm getting out of my car and that I'm walking to the door of this convenience stand. And not only am I seeing all these things, but I'm experiencing them. Now, one of the things that I might have done early on is I might just focus on the Coca-Cola sign and just, been drawn to that red and tried to create something from that graphic or something like that. and I would still probably photograph that, but what I try to do nowadays is I try to pull back. I try to challenge myself and think of, what if I pull back? What if I go from 35 millimeters to 24 millimeter and I start including more in the frame? Can I make a successful photograph by including more elements, but still not introducing a bunch of distractions? And I think that there's a lot of elements in this shot, but everything here is working for me. There's not really a single thing here that I would actually take out that distracts or reduces the impact of the shot. And that's where the challenge is. We can focus so much on photographing people and getting the nice, the nice moment, the nice gesture, but sometimes, the biggest challenge is creating images like these, where you just focus on looking at everything that's in front of you, especially the common elements like signs and machines and storefronts and all these things, and trying to take this thing that's incredibly ordinary, that's incredibly familiar, and make something really exceptional with it. Even if you aren't into street photography, just going out in your neighborhood or going out downtown or wherever you are and making shots like that, you'll find that the experience can be really amazing and can result in some really, really interesting challenges and photographs for you. So that's it. We've had a lot of people join the community over the last couple of weeks, and it's great stuff. Sometimes it's a challenge trying to find a unique subject, but I'm always inspired by some of the work that I'm seeing here. I'm actually going to be going out and shooting tomorrow in downtown Los Angeles, but next weekend on August 25th, if you're in the Los Angeles area, I'm going to be teaching a workshop through the Los Angeles Center of Photography, formerly the Julia Dean School of Photography. And if you're in LA on the 25th, there's going to be a full day of photography there, including a critique session at the end of the day. So if you want to have a more hands-on experience with me and have a wonderful time shooting with some other passionate street photographers, well, join me on the 25th. And if you've not heard the Candid Frame podcast before, visit me at the candidframe.com, where we have hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best established and emerging photographers. So thanks again for joining me, and I will see you next time.